Every time a new set is released in the Pokemon TCG, collectors, players alike are scrambling to pick up cards, look at new things, and just kind of expand their collection and decks. Each new set usually comes with a little bit of changes to what we're used to, and a lot of really cool cards for collectors and everyone alike. But once in a while, there's a mini set. And what mini sets do isn't a lot. They just release a couple of cards into the expansion. A lot of them are just pretty looking cards for people's binders. But sometimes they'll release a card that's impactful, like this one. Budew. Budew has changed the Pokemon trading card game forever. Now, you guys might be used to Reggie Drago if you start dominating the format. Aggressive, two prize knockouts, fast games. But Budew comes in and changes the game entirely. How is this different for a lot of players? Well, they're not used to playing with slower paces. They're not used to playing with item locks specifically. And this changes deck building and the game forever. My name is Rahul Reddy. I'm a competitive Pokemon TCG player. I'm ranked currently number 2 in North America. And if you guys enjoy this kind of content, please like and subscribe. Today we're going to talk about the current state of the metagame, how Budew has really shifted the metagame from what it used to be to what it is now. So pre-Budew, there was Reggie Drago is the low, high end, like just king of the format. It was number one by a large margin. I think a lot of people could not argue that it was the BDIF, followed by probably Lugia V-Star and Raging Bolt. And Gardevoir was like a, you know, fourth place, just a deck played by believers, not too many other people. And then Charizard was one of the top three as well. Like those were like your five de facto decks. Reggie Drago was a deck to beat because all the good players would bring it. It was a deck that pretty much had every single avenue and angle that you wanted for it to be good. It had all the good pieces. It had all the good cards. You had Curum to explode the board. You had all these really cool attackers. You could have these energy switch, earth and vessel combos to basically just set up a powerful board out of nowhere. And then following that, you had Charizard. Charizard, a deck that relies on the engine of Pidgeot, both getting two rare candies up and running. Infernal Rain accelerates the fire energy from your deck to the Charizard itself, making it a 2-for-1 where you don't have to find those energy cards yourself, and it thins some of those cards out of the deck for you, make it so you don't draw into fire energies later on in the game when you need other cards to close it out. Pidgeot gets you any card in the deck, so once per turn, you get to basically get one piece of your combo, whatever combo you're trying to pull off that turn, and it can be as simple as finding a boss's orders to bring up a threat on your opponent's board and take it out that turn. Or it could be as complicated as putting together some sort of Thornton, Candy, Dusknor, Rescue Stretcher play that you were trying to pull off, like, like a 5-piece meal at a restaurant here. Now, those two decks have a gigantic fall from grace. It's all thanks to Budew. Budew basically comes into the format and says, hey, I have this really cool attack. I may only have 30 HP, but I have a really cool attack called Itchy Pollen. For no energy cost required, it does 10 damage and just says your one simple text line. The opposing player cannot play item cards from their turn in this next turn. And right now, the composition of most Pokemon TCG decks is roughly 40% to 50% items. So a card that says you can't play half your deck is pretty crippling in a lot of scenarios. And there's not a lot of decks that actually utilize this card. The primary two being Dragapult EX and Gardevoir EX. Gardevoir EX already being a deck that was on the fringe of Tier 2 winning tournaments still, but it was a Tier 2 deck considered by most just because of its natural innate consistency issues. And if the deck has a little bit of a slower start, most decks are able to capitalize and break it down. But with Budew, you're able to buy that one turn back. Oh, I'm having a slow start. Let's make sure you have a slow start too. And in that situation, if you're both in a stalemate, the Gardevoir player gets to actually evolve up their board, go from the Raltses to the Curlias to the Gardevoirs, and all of a sudden their board has sustenance. Their board can get to those one prize attackers that are so damaging. Screamtail, Drifloon, Fluttermane, Cresselia, whatever attackers you want to choose to use, once the Monkey Dories are online with the Dark Energies, it's just really impossible to break their board. And so the best way to beat Gardevoir early is to break their board, and with Budew, you can't really do that anymore. Dragapult becomes close to a tier 1, if not one of the best decks in the format, just from a simple card like Budew. Because Dragapult up till now didn't really have legs to stand on because a lot of the aggressive decks could just beat it down fast. Something like Rage Drago could just get to its Curum attack, wipe out the board. Raging Bolt could just blow up the Dragapults pretty quickly. Something like Lugia could just get to Iron Hands on turn 2 and just make it really difficult for Dragapult to play the game. But with Budew, and assuming your opponents are also Bedewing you, you're playing a supporter-based engine. And there's a really, really cool supporter the Dragapult gets to play called Lance. Now, Lance is about to rotate, but what Lance says is that you can just get 3 Dragon types from your deck. And it's not much, right? Just 3 Dragon type guys. But that means you get Dracloak. And Dracloak says, look at the top 2 cards of your deck, put 1 into your hand, put 1 at the bottom of your deck. So every single turn, once you hit your first Arven into your first Lance, you're going to be going through your deck way, way faster. You're seeing like 12 cards a turn. You have your supporters on top of that. You have your Arvens, your combos, and you buy that 1 turn back with Budew. And if you're able to buy more than 1 back, then, power to you. Your board gets set up. You get to take these immaculate 4, 5, 6 prize turns with Dragapult's Phantom Dive attack, which was one of the best attacks in the Regidrago deck. Especially, it's just that getting to Dragapult itself was difficult. Now, Charizard actually is the deck that takes, I think, the biggest hit from this new change, because Charizard EX loses its ability to go into Rare Candy Pidgeot, Rare Candy Charizard on turn 2, which was such a powerful play, because you were able to establish such a powerful board and a big attacker that really couldn't get one shot by anything in the format immediately. But now you have to deal with getting Bedewed, probably having to play slow, go into your Charmeleons, maybe even have to play a Pidgeotto, and your ace spec of choice might have to be something like Grand Treat, just to evolve up, just to get back up to your guys. Make it so the tempo is back in your favor. But later in the game, Charizard has so many resources that are reliant on combo pieces, your candies, your stretchers, your super rods. These pieces need to come all in turn. So if your early game gets slowed down to the point where, I don't know, Dragapult can start picking apart your board. Pidgeys have 50 or 60 HP. Duskulls have 60 HP. Like, the Dragapult is going to be picking apart your board. Gardevoir gets to get set up and start blowing up your board as well. And at that point, is it even worth playing a deck like Charizard when you can just play a different setup deck that's just better into these Budew decks? The one deck that it doesn't really struggle, or it does struggle to a little bit, but not as much as people think, is Lugia. If a deck chooses to use Budew into Lugia, Lugia gets a turn to read the wind. The tempo stays the exact same. We are on the exact same wavelength of turns. If it's the same as in older formats where if Gardevoir would use TM Evo, they are going into their Curlias and their Gardevoirs 1 turn faster, and Lugia has to go respond 1 turn faster with an Iron Hands or a Wellspring Ogerpon. On the flip side, if Gardevoir or Dragapult uses Budew and isn't using TM Evo, that means their board is still Rotz's or Dreepies, and at that stage, Lugia gets 1 more turn to read the wind, gets to be able to find their Iron Hands, gets to find their Wellspring Ogerpons, and gets to make some damage happen. Now, the thing is, the Budew determines the entire matchup. In those first 2 to 3 turns, if the Budew does not slow the Lugia player down enough, and the Lugia player gets to their double chops, gets to their Iron Hands, gets to their Wellspring Ogerpon, the game is probably lost anyway. So, why am I saying all this? The game went from being really fast, really aggressive, to a Budew format. And the Pokemon TCG is always constantly evolving, constantly changing, and small things like this is a beautiful reason to play the game. A small mini set released, Prismatic Evolutions, just a bunch of reprints to, make card prices go down. A couple of collector cards like the Evolutions, just to, appease the fans who love Eevees. Some cool arts. I'm an Eevee lover myself. I'm an Umbreon guy. But one small grass type attacker changed the entire landscape of the Pokemon TCG, turned the entire metagame upside down on its head. And to me, that's a beautiful, beautiful thing.